And chapter 4 to chapter 10 is about how do you work with all of your suppliers, including your inbound partner agency, your transport, accommodations, activities, tour guides, destinations, and also how do you work with your clients, which is the last person in the supply chain. And so with the first one, what is inbound partner agencies? A lot of companies made a mistake of understanding what is inbound partner agency. So please note down this part that partner agency, we do have the definitions of what partner agency is to see whether it's relevant for your company. So I can easily say that inbound partner agencies are your partners who operating tours for you outside of the country that you are based, if you don't have your own office in other country. So say if there's a company from Indonesia and they also do Malaysia, but they do not have their own office in Malaysia and they have to work through an inbound tour operator in Malaysia to operate tours for their clients, then the company in Malaysia is considered your partner, your inbound partner agencies. Yeah, but if the company based in Jakarta and then you have a partner in Bali to operate tours for you within Bali, then they are not your inbound partner agencies. They are at the moment still considered excursion providers, and we would go to, there's another chapter for excursion providers, and that is where you need to report on, but they are not considered your inbound partner agencies. So for some company where you only sell your destination and you don't sell any other neighboring countries, then the whole chapter is not applicable for you, and then you can answer NA for all the criteria. But if you do work with inbound partner agencies, then NA is not an option for you, and then you have to consider answering just yes or no for this chapter. Again, we do have an internal note system integrated into your reporting. So if you do want to take note for today and you want to take specific note to specific criterion, then I would really recommend you to use our internal notes. And that means that you need to also at the same time log in into your your Travel Live account and access the same thing by going to planning and reporting, open your report, go to chapter 4, open remarks, internal notes, and just write down the notes for your own company. So after the webinar, you can always go back to it and see what you have noted down for yourself in order to improve or even start with the reporting in the report. And so if you're all clear on this, I'm going to proceed with explain what each of the criteria means in our system. So the very basic concept of the Travel Live reporting from chapter 4 is that the very first criteria is always about policy. And as I have mentioned in the previous webinar, policy means that you have a documented file of your policies, and policies are not things that frowned upon in your company that people talk about. We do this, we do that, but you don't have it documented anywhere. Then when you do it verbally, it's not considered that you have a policy on it. So you either have to come up, you either have to start documenting them, or if those are non-mandatory criteria, then just briefly answer to give us an answer no, that we do not have it. However, you can describe to us here why don't you have it, and if you have a plan in the future to document it at all. For the new company, I'm gonna briefly go through the two types of criteria we have in our system. So we do have mandatory and non-mandatory criteria for Travel Live partner stage, or also Travel Live certified stage. So that means that at the first engagement at Travel Live, you are only required to be in compliance with the mandatory criteria, and if you're not yet done anything regarding the non-mandatory criteria, it won't affect the decision of giving you of approving the Travel Live partner status for you. So this is something to brief you about, so that when you go through the whole travel life report, you don't have the feeling that you have to do everything because it's not required. And in order to see which criteria is mandatory and which criteria is non-mandatory, you can take a look at the second column here, that as I'm showing. So with the tick, it means it is a mandatory criteria, and with the dash, it is non-mandatory, as you can see when I move my mouse over. And so for 1.4 to 1.3, they are all mandatory criteria, which means that if you do have it in the system, great, just answer to us yes, upload your policy, done, you can move to the next criterion. If you do not have it yet though, then you can still tick yes if you create an action plan for how you're going to implement this in the future. And for the travel life partner stage, we need to see at least, if it's regarding policy, we need to see at least the policy documented. We don't need yet to see that you have influenced your suppliers. So that is a requirement for travel life partner stage when it comes to working with suppliers. To pass the travel life partner stage, you need to have the policy documented. And the action plans for how you're going to use this policy to influence and to increase the sustainability practices of your suppliers, including your partner agency, your tour guide, transport, accommodation, etc. So that means that with 4.1, to make this criterion validated for travel life partner, we need to see that you at least documenting your policy towards partner agencies in order to improve their sustainability. And if you don't know how to do it, you can always view guidance. So we already have some of the templates, some examples. So these are the examples. These are not templates of how the other company is doing it. So you can use it as a reference when you create your own policy towards your partner agencies. The easiest thing you can do is to create a policy that that you would introduce Travel Life system to all of your inbound partner agencies. So as a member of Travel Life, your inbound partner agency can also have access into the Travel Life system as your partner. And in order to do that, please after the webinar, you can contact me via my email, and I think everybody knows my email already. So you can send me an email with a request to add your inbound partner agency in the system, and then we would create a group for you that your partner agency can have access to our online training, to the same reporting with you. The only thing that they won't get if they do not become a paid member of Travel Life is the personal consultation and technical support from us. So basically they have access in the system, but if anything happens or if they have any question at all, your partner agency would need to come to you instead of coming to Travel Life for asking questions. So again, there's 2 tabs for you to always look at when you don't know what to do regarding a certain criterion, including guidance and best practices. So guidance is the guidelines from us, is consulting and advice from us on how can you carry out a certain requirement. And best practices shows recommendations from the other Travel Life members who have done something good regarding the requirement, and they want to share it with the rest of the Travel Life members. So here are your source of inspiration when it comes to how to start with carrying out a certain criterion. And as I mentioned before, if you don't have it yet, then you need to create an action plan. And please always remember that with an action plan, you need to be as specific and as quantitative as possible. So you, for example, you would not want to create a task that say to have the partner agency policy and to select the member and then start and end date and put it in here. If you want to assign it with a certain staff in the company, you want to specify where are the source of recommendation that you can look at in order to compose a policy. And if you compose a policy, it's not that easy that you have the policy composed and then you can have it published. You also need to go through the management board to see if they approve of it. You also need to have a consultancy sessions with your staff member, especially the one who deal directly with inbound partner agency, to make sure that it's feasible to impose the policy on your partner agencies. So with all of those steps, you need to specify all of those steps out here, instead of just saying that to have the partner agency policy, to upload it on the Travel Life system and leave it there. So please make sure that once you create an action plan, you create a following task with this as well. And as I mentioned before, you can create tasks in the Travel Life system, and you can create as many as possible. So I'm just gonna do a very quick test in here. And if I click on save, you can see one task is saved in the system. If I click on a new task, I can easily add another one. And you can see the two tasks are recorded in our system here, right? And it gives you three options. So it gives you the option to edit the task. It gives you the option to change the status of the task, so to show that it's implemented. And it gives you the option to delete the task if you want to delete it completely from the system because you already have the task done. Yeah. So always remember with the action plan, if you do use our Travel Life action planning tool, and as I mentioned before in the previous webinar, this is not a mandatory tool for you to use. If you feel like working on Excel file or the other software, it's easier for you to create an action plan for your company and to follow up with it, then feel free to use all those other tools. Then you can disregard the action planning tool in the system. And for new company, if you haven't yet attended the webinar for chapter 0 to chapter 3, I'm just going to quickly show you how the action planning tool works. How do you see the whole action plan? So if you started creating different tasks for different criteria, say here you create some action plan, and under 4.4, for example, you also have some action plan created. I'm just gonna create also a very quick one here. So you see I also create some action plan here, and you would ask the questions, how can you see all of those tasks in one go? And you can do it by going back to theme overview, just the overview page where we first started, and go to action plan, which is on the left-hand tab, and then click on download. Loading. After it's loaded, you can see that this is the basic action plan that Travel Life has generated for you after you put in different actions. So on the second page, you would see an overview, and you can see the action plan period. You see how the status of the general status of all the tasks. You see who the sustainability coordinator, you see the staff involved, and you see the total calculations of the financial resources plan. If you do put financial under each task, then it would calculate in total for you. And so we did a test on chapter 4, and you can see the actions are displayed now under chapter 4. If you do the same thing from chapter 0 to chapter 10, they would all be displayed under this one file. The only drawback of this action planning tool is that we do not generate Excel format for the action plan. Yes, you can see this is the PDF format of the action plan. So if you want to change the status, for example, as I did a test before, I changed the status to implement it on this task, and you can see there's a tick here on the task. So if you click implemented on every single action, they would also be updated directly and immediately on this PDF file. But to tick on implemented, you always have to go back to planning and reporting and go directly to the criteria, to the criterion where you have the action plan recorded. And you need to tick on that specific action that is implemented, and that's how you update it. So it is quite a process. However, the strength of this action plan is that it's very specific to the Travel Life requirements. So if you do apply sustainability according to Travel Life set of standards in your company, this is a good tool for you to follow, to still have positive actives and positive actions being implemented in your company and still in the compliance with Travel Life criteria for your certification. So that is the action plan. So yeah, so as I said before, you can, for mandatory criterion, you always have to say yes. It's not okay to say no. So if you see that if you say no in the system, there would be this sign. And as long as we see this sign, it means that you answer no on a mandatory criteria. And this will affect your Travel Life Partner award. So you will not get the Travel Life Partner award if you have even one criteria that's answer no. You can do that by explaining to us why exactly you can't implement the requirements under a certain circumstance. So it's either the internal situation or the external situation that doesn't allow you to carry that out, or because of the nature of your business, because sometimes other than tour operator, we have a very specific type of travel agents that a certain criteria are not applicable for them. So in that sense, then you can answer no and give us a fair explanation of why can't you do it. But most of the time, it needs to be yes. And it can be yes if you have a specific plan on how you're going to do it. So yeah, so if you have but again, as I said, you can pass the Travel Life Partner having a very comprehensive action plan. However, there's a certain criteria, especially when it's regarding policy, that you need to have them documented before Travel Life Partner. So if we do not see your policy ready on a paper, then we won't be able to approve your Travel Life Partner, even though you create a great action plan for it. So because that's the least thing you can do before the Travel Life Partner status. So that is for 4.1. And for 4.2, it asks that you need to communicate the policy to your partners. So they need to be informed about your company's sustainability policy and how do you expect them to comply with the policy and to practice certain actions from the policy. So you need to, so as I mentioned from the webinar in chat, from the webinar from chapter 0 to chapter 3, before the text box, you always see our clear description of what we're asking you to report in, and always remember to answer specifically to what we're asking. You don't have to provide different backgrounds of your answer because we won't look at it and it would cost you time to write down. So really write down what we're asking. If you have a document upload it in the system. You don't even have to explain. So for this one, what you can show us is that you can show the evidence via emails, because of course you need to send the policy to your partner via email, or you can link it, but also using email to link it to your website, for example, if you have the policy uploaded on your website. So there would always be evidence of communication. So we need to see the email screenshot, for example. we need to see if you also include the policy into your contract, and you can also attack the contract in here. So whatever possible evidence that you can show us, but we do not accept if you say we do communicate very frequently with our partners via multiple channels. Um, so how frequent it is. So you never use the word frequent. If you use frequent, you have to tell to us frequent is 2 times a year, every time the contract is renewed. Frequent is as in we check the quality of the product with our inbound partners every month, and every month we also mention that in our communication. Or frequent is every quarter. So don't ever use the word frequent or regular without specifying how regular it is. And don't say from multiple channels. You have to specifically say from which channel, so via email. Many companies try to tell us that we communicate with our partners via our social media. And that is not relevant, because with social media, you add, when you click on your social media, we see many people from different targets are on your platform. And that means that even though you upload something without targeting anybody, it might be a chance that it won't target specifically to your inbound partner agencies. And once you have a policy for them, to inform them about the policy is not, social media is not a channel to do it. So really don't just throw in the answer that confuse us, because anytime that we feel confused, anytime we don't see transparency in your answer, then we would come back and ask you a very specific question about how you report in the system. So really be honest when you give an answer. Really think about what was the means of communication you have made. Even though if you did it verbally with your inbound partner, then you also need to specify verbally when you go inspect them, when you are on the phone with them, because in a later stage at Travel I Certified, we will also do cross-check with your inbound partner to see whether you actually all the communication actually took place regarding the sustainability policy for partner agency. So if they say no, then that would be the evidence against you to get Travel I Certified. So really be honest on what you answer. If you haven't done any communication, it is fine at this stage. However, you need to plan out how you're going to do the communication with your partner, whether you're going to do it with all of the partners, you're going to start it when the new contract is renewed. You're going to start it with the next time when you do the inspection in their country, or when they come visit you in your country. So really specify out how you're going to do it, and to validate this criteria for you, a Travel Life partner, then we really need to see that a clear plan is set out, a clear and feasible plan is set out on how you communicate with your partners. 4.3 is also a mandatory criteria, so it asks for contract conditions. Also, when you go through your criteria, your own Travel Life partner set of standards, some of you might see that maybe this criterion is not mandatory for you, because also the mandatory and non-mandatory standards are varied through different countries. So don't question when now that I'm explaining to you that it's a mandatory criteria from my screen, but on your screen is non-mandatory criteria, then it's not a technical error. It's just that it's country specific for you. So regarding this one from my screen, it is mandatory, and that means that for me, if I'm a company and I have to then I have to be to comply with this requirement, which means that I need to add the key sustainability clauses in the contract conditions, and this works two ways. So if you are the person who is issuing the contract, then you can easily add it in the contract as a condition. But some company informed us that they are not the contract issuer, the partner, the suppliers, they are the contract issuer. So in that sense, you can create an addendum to the contract as an agreement, that your partner agency need to sign in that addendum agreement as well before you sign the working contract with them. So there's two ways of working with this. So you can't say that because we're not a contract issuer, so we can't impose our policy towards our partner agency. And the key sustainability clauses are also mentioned in here. So you can, as long as you go through the whole chapter, you can see that what the requirements from us can actually make up the policy for yourself towards your partner agency. So if you want to create a policy for partner agency or for certain suppliers, which you can see throughout chapter 4 to chapter 10, then you need to go through the whole chapter. So just leave the travel life partner agency, the first criterion on policy, just go through the rest of the criteria and see what we're asking. Then you can add them as policy for your partners. I would explain this later, and when we go through the whole chapter. So this is very black and white. You need to have conditions in the contract. It has to be written because you have written contract with your partner agency. So the key sustainability clause would also be written down, and it should always have the termination terms that if you find out that your partner agency is not in compliance with all of those key sustainability clauses, you would terminate the contract with them. So there should always be consequences of the misconduct against the policy that you written in the agreement. For 4.4, this is so from 4.4 to 4.7. This is non-mandatory. Those are further suggestions that we give to you that you could do towards your partner agencies in order to improve the sustainability. For example, giving them motivation to practice sustainability by participate in different sustainability training. And this can be the online sustainability training on the Travel Life system. So if you do give them access to the Travel Life system so that they can take the online training for free from Travel Life, then you can explain it here that we do add them in the system to in order to take the Travel Life sustainability training. Or if you ever hear of any training from Travel Life or from different organizations on any topics of sustainability in tourism, then you also need to list it out here. But you can't just say that, oh, we do encourage hotels to join in sustainability training, because it's very easy to say so. You need to show us, okay, if you encourage them, how do you do it? Did you email them when you heard about the training? If you did email them, please attach the email screenshot. So always provide evidence, because of course we can't just trust that you say, oh, we do motivate, without specifying from which means, through which communication channels you're using to motivate them. Sustainability training completed. So if you actually follow up with your partner agency to see if they completed a sustainability training, to motivate them to join. So for example, if you engage them into the Travel Life system for them to do the sustainability training, maybe 1 month or 2 months later, you can come back to the partner agency to see if they completed the training at all by asking them to show you the certificate that they have acquired after taking the training. So that is an evidence to that they have completed the sustainability training. And same thing with offline training, if they can show any certificates at all. Sustainability reporting is that they need to report to you on sustainability achievement that and if they have shared the results. And this is also very black and white. So whether you would ask them, the basic thing you could ask is if they are working with any sustainability certification scheme, like Travel Life, for example, or if they have a sustainability page on their website, and if they actually update the results and the achievements on sustainability on the website. So, so for this part, you need to show us that you actively seek for the results and achievement from your partner agencies regarding sustainability. A sustainability award, which means if they have achieved any sustainability certificate at all, or if it's not, then you can just answer no. So for the rest of chapter 4, you can see that all of these criteria are non-mandatory. So I'm going to go briefly through them. So 4.8 is about contract. If you have written contract with your partner agencies, and this is not about the contracts that has policy. This is only about if you partner with them, if you work with them as a business partner, do you have a written contract that you sign in that specify the rates, the terms and conditions of partnership. So if it's yes, just click yes in here and upload the contract. So I'm just going to go through the file manager, the uploading tools that we have in our system again, just to make sure that you remember all the steps. So if you want to upload, in this case, a contract, you need to click on file manager, and it would shows you the first page of the list of uploaded files. In this case, I haven't uploaded anything, so under my uploads, it has nothing. So I need to go to upload new file to upload something in the system. So, for example, I'm just gonna browse through this. So I'm open this file. So if you scroll down, you can see the upload status is completed. I'm going to go back to my uploads to see if the upload is here. So as in this case, you can see the upload is here in the system under my uploads. But it doesn't mean that I'm done, because, for example, if I close this window, none of the document is displayed here. So always remember, after uploading, you need to connect the file to the criterion. And to connect it, just easily click on the plus sign on the status column. Then the file is connected. So now in this case, if I close the window, then you can see that the file is uploaded here. And many companies have fallen into this trap that they upload so many documents in the system without connecting it. So in the end, when I open File Manager, I see 4 or 5 pages of documents. However, I don't see anything connected here, which means that afterwards I would ask the company to come back to their reporting and connect specific file for specific criteria, which gonna cost you double time. So always make sure that once you upload a file in the system, you connect it. You can easily disconnect it by click on this minus sign. And this uploading tools allow you to keep all your uploads from whatever criteria you have uploaded the file on, to all show here under my uploads, which means that you don't have to re-upload the file again. So for example, if I go to 1.4.9, I open the file manager here, I can see the file that I have uploaded before. So if I still want to use this file for another criterion, then I just need to click on this without uploading it again. So it's fairly easy to use. Then for yourself, you can also see the list of documents that you have uploaded in our system. So this is a management tool for you of all the documents that you have provided regarding sustainability. So that's done for 4.8. 4.9 is about if you brief your contract manager on the relevant sustainability issues in the destination. So for example, when you, so I would take an example of Bali. So Bali has the problem on plastic waste, for example. So if I'm based in Singapore and I have an inbound partner agency in Bali, then I would discuss the plastic waste problem with this company and what do they do within the company at the moment to reduce their own negative impact on this big a macro issue of the destination. So those are some of the examples that you can do regarding briefing with the contract manager from your inbound partner agency. So if you have done any of those communication at all, then you can also attach it here with the screenshot, for example. Anti-corruption. So this is one of the clauses in the sustainability policy that that you expect your partner to have an anti-corruption policy. As I mentioned before, as you go through the whole chapter, you can see several requirements actually act as a policy that you can use them to compose your own policy toward partner agency. So this is one of the requirements that you can use as a policy. So you can use this whole sentence to make up your policy for partner agencies. Same thing with 4.11, that you put a clause in the contract, say that enable contract partners to end the contractual agreement if your partner agency do not take adequate measures to prevent sexual exploitation of children within the direct supply chain. So if you see any case that occur through the operations of your partner agencies that do not prevent the sexual exploitation of children, then you do have the right to terminate the contract prematurely. So this can be also a policy in your general policy towards partner agency. Same thing with license, that all of your partners need to comply with local and national, international legislation and regulation, which means that in this case, you can tell us if they all have business license to operate as a tour operator in their own country. And in that case, because I know that not a lot of you do not work with many partner agencies, so we need to see at least one example of the business license from one of your partners. And this can also be a policy in your sustainability policy for partner agency. Same thing with labor conditions. You can also put a clause in the policies that the company needs to comply with all relevant national laws protecting the rights of their employees. So this can also be a part of the policy. So that is chapter 4, and we're going to move forward to chapter 5.